I am excited about today's episode because it's about a speaker from a company that I'm pretty sure most of you have never heard of. It's called Audiophiliac, Audio. They're based in Norway, and the speaker is the Frigg 2. Now, I never heard of Audio until very recently, but there's enough special things about this speaker that I felt like, yeah, I have to do this review. Now, was founded in 2014. They didn't bring out their first model until 2015. It's called the Icon. And right now there's 3 speakers in the line. And it's a small company. They only make 3 models, but they all look pretty special. But I'm starting with their most affordable and newest model, the Frigg 2. Before I get too far into this review, I want to take a moment to reintroduce myself to my viewers. There is a lot of competition here on YouTube in audio review channels, and I welcome the competition. But I want to point out, well, a little bit about me and my background of how I got here to create a YouTube channel. And I'm just going to say I started in the audio business in 1978 as a high-end audio salesman at Sound by Singer here in New York City. And that was an amazing experience. But that eventually led to, much later, led to writing about audio, starting with Listener Magazine and Sensible Sound and Audio Magazine and Home Theater Magazine, lots and lots of magazines, and also Stereophile and The Absolute Sound. And that was my background. And then I got a job working for CNET.com, huge electronics website. So I have literally done, before I started this YouTube channel, probably thousands of reviews. Around 1990, I started working for Chesky Records as an assistant producer during sessions. And that gig lasted well into the 2000s. And in 1995, I wrote and produced the Ultimate Demonstration Disc. It was a test CD for Chesky Records. It sold close to 100,000 CDs worldwide. It was translated into many languages. And that's what I bring to this channel, to this story, being a reviewer. Now, as for the review itself of the Audio Frigg 2, well, it's a pretty special speaker. It's a 3-way floor-standing speaker. It's ported, by the way, I don't want to forget, the bass port is on the bottom of the speaker. That's pretty cool. The drivers are all made by CS in Norway. And Audio and CS, they partnered together, and these drivers are proprietary for use in the speakers made by Audio. As for the tweeter, it's a spread toe carbon fiber tweeter, and it's set in a specially designed waveguide. The mid-range is a 7-inch driver, specially coated, and it's a paper cone driver, specially coated, and it uses a titanium former for the voice coil. Now, this mid-range driver isn't sealed and it isn't ported. Its rear wave exits through this grill on the back of the speaker. I've never seen anything quite like it or sound like it. It definitely has a sound that's closer to an open baffle speaker. So yeah, it's not ported, it's not sealed, it has this unique, to me, in my experience, venting system for the rear wave of the mid-range. And the woofer in the Frigg 2 is an 8-inch woofer, also paper driver that's specially coated, also with a titanium former for the voice coil. Oh, by the way, I asked for a picture of the crossover, and they sent one. This is it. And I will note that the speaker's impedance is rated at 8 ohms, but it does drop down to 3.8 ohms. The sensitivity is fairly high. It's 90 dB sensitivity. Oh, the speaker is available in these 4 finishes. The shape of the cabinet is pretty special. It tapers to the top, but it's also canted back. It's an interesting combination of angles and shapes. The outrigger feet are cast metal feet. I think they're cast aluminum. Anyway, everything about the build quality and finish is absolutely first rate. Their new distributor and first distributor in the US is Hi-Fi Loft, which are based here in New York, and they loaned these speakers to me for this review. Now, over the course of this review, I did compare it against a Danish speaker, the ones I just reviewed, the Dynaudio Contour Legacy. And the electronics I used over the course of this review, the amplifiers, were the Passlabs XA25, the First Watt SIT5, which is a monoblock single-ended no feedback amplifier, which I will be reviewing in the coming months. And the Gato PWR222 250 watt monoblock amplifiers. You know, as I got to know the sound of this speaker, I did not consider it to be a particularly neutral sounding speaker. And that is, well, I mean it to be a compliment. Because the thing that I kept coming back to was the tonality of this speaker just seems very at ease and natural, slightly full. Voices, acoustic instruments sounded more like their natural tonality through the speaker than most competing speakers in this price range. Oh, I didn't tell you the price of this speaker. It is $13,900 a pair, which makes it almost exactly the same price as the Dynaudio Contour Legacy that I compared it to. That one is $14,000 a pair. So that made for an interesting comparison. What I'm circling around here is that maybe a big part of the sound of this speaker is that mid-range driver isn't, let's say, enclosed as most other mid-range drivers are. That is, in a sealed or ported enclosure. This one's open to the rear, and that, I think, is part of it. I really think that this speaker's ease and spaciousness can be attributed to that part of the design. I can't say there's just as much sound coming out of the back of this driver through that rectangular opening in the back of the speaker as the front, but let's just say a lot of the sound is coming front and rear. In other words, let's call it, it's not technically correct, but I'll call it a semi-dipole design. I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that Audio makes only 3 models, and the other 2 are horns, two-way horn speakers. So some of that horn quality, that horniness, has trickled down to the Frigg 2, meaning it's extremely dynamic and you can play it at very quiet listening levels and not feel frustrated. Frustrated in the sense you want to turn it up but you can't because it's late at night. I did this many nights and listened to the Frigg 2. Extremely quiet, like 50 dB peaks, and I was perfectly happy. So yes, this speaker can do that. One of the first albums I played over the Frigg 2 was this classic by Stevie Wonder. And that track, They Won't Go When I Go, I think that's this. Anyway, it's gorgeous. It's Stevie Wonder, a lot of a cappella, multi-track vocals by him, and it's just spine-tingling in just how it just reaches me over these speakers. And some of that is that dynamic freedom. And somehow that led to some Creedence Clearwater. Just, radical change. It's just American rock from the 1960s. And it is in its own way iconic. And I was cranking that up way loud and just digging what these speakers could do. Because sometimes European speakers can't rock out particularly well. This speaker can kick ass. It absolutely can. It's not afraid to boogie. Absolutely. And then staying with that kind of vibe, I played Neil Young's classic, everybody knows This Is Nowhere. Cinnamon Girl. Now, that is such a great track. I've probably played it thousands of times in my life. And it's not a great recording. It can sound really harsh and annoying on some speakers. Not so with this one. It just came through. And the thing that really struck me, though, on the more quieter acoustic tracks like Round and Round, there was something about Neil Young's delivery, his voice, how he was singing was more, let's say, vulnerable. That I felt his presence more in the room with these speakers. Super impressive. And again, I've heard this recording a gazillion times, but I never heard Neil Young sound quite like that before. Again, tonality and dynamics, that's what makes the speaker stand out. Moving on, I was eager to do the comparison between the Frigg 2 and the Dynaudio Contour Legacy. Again, they're almost exactly the same price. So they're competing for the same type of buyer. But these two speakers do not sound similar at all. And when the music that I was playing, at least in the beginning part of this, was Morphine, the band Morphine, their album Cure for Pain. Now, if you don't know this music, it's an unusual lineup for a band. It's bass, saxophone, vocals, and drums. So no guitars, no keyboards. And I gotta say, it's an amazing sound. It just clicked with me way back when, I guess it was in the 90s. They just have this, again, a sense of rhythm and quirky lyrics and all that stuff. And I'm switching between these two speakers, the Dynaudio and the Audiophiliac. And, well, let's put it this way. The Dynaudio wins instantly on transparency, purity, inner detail, huge sound stage. It does a lot of things really, really well. I just reviewed this speaker. It was sticking around for a little bit longer, and I wanted to do this comparison. And that's a big difference. But when I switched over to the Frigg 2, well, it was a much warmer sound. The vocal, the baritone sax just had a bigger sound. The bass had more weight to it, more, you could touch it, more dimensionality to the bass. So the Dynaudio was relatively, well, the Dynaudio sound was forward. The soundstage came forward and occupied the room, and the soundstage of the Frigg 2 was way more laid back and distant sounding. You know, a lot of the things I was hearing, though, really did come down to that mid-range tonality. Now, I lean towards preferring fuller sounding speakers than leaner sounding speakers. And I think the mid-range on the Dynaudio is pretty darn good all on its own. But compared to the Frigg 2, no, when I was listening to Mark Sandman, the vocalist, also the bass player in Morphine, he was more there. He was more completely developed over the Frigg 2. And when I returned back to the Dynaudio, Mark Sandman had apparently been on a diet and lost some weight, put it that way. You know, I realize that I haven't mentioned this before in a video, but some people know. I am writing my biography of my life as a New York City movie theater projectionist from 1974 to 1999. And over the course of those years, I did have some close encounters with the movie director, David Lynch, who just passed away recently. So I've been thinking about him for my book. But I've also been playing this soundtrack to one of his movies, Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me. It is very Lynchy in this music. It's moody, it's dark, it's jazzy. This one track with a vocal by Jimmy Scott. What a singer this guy is. Really, really interesting singer. He fits right in with the mood of this album and this movie. Anyway, it was really, really striking the way the sound of this score for the movie just filled the room. It occupied this space really, really well. And it got me back in tune with that Lynch vibe, his weird, strange, ominous tone. It's all there in this music, and the Frigg 2 was bringing it to life. So wherever you are, David Lynch, this one's for you. Anyway, we will now move on to, so Steve, what do you really think of the Audiophiliac Frigg 2? I'm so glad I got to do this review, because one of the things I'm searching for when I'm doing reviews is a speaker or products that have character, something that distinguishes them from all the other, really nice speakers that are out there. This speaker definitely has character. It does tonality, body, warmth extremely well. And its sense of openness and spaciousness, again, extraordinary for a speaker. Well, basically still a box speaker. And its sense of dynamics, its abilities as a dynamic speaker, it's not fully a horn speaker, but it's close. It gives you a lot of that jump factor that I associate with the best horn designs. Oh, and the bass goes down to, well, their spec is 29 hertz, which I say is pretty believable. That's above average for a speaker of this size with drivers of its size. So yeah, and I think it looks really cool. So Audiophiliac, I'm glad you made it to the US after all these years. This is an auspicious beginning. So good for you guys. Oh, and I want to send out a thank you to Jason and Mike from Hi-Fi Loft for delivering these speakers. So thanks again. Anyway, speaking of thanks, now it is time for you know it, you love it, the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. Jim lives in Omaha in Nebraska. He's got a bunch of systems. I'm going to start with this one. This is the upstairs system. He has a Schiit Vidar amp, Schiit Freya Plus preamp. Turntable is a Marantz TT15 with a Virtuoso moving magnet cartridge. The phono preamp is a Project Phono Box S2. DAC topping D70 Octo. Streaming is by Cambridge MXN10. The speakers are KEF LS50 Metas, and the sub is an SVS SB1000. The second part of the system is a Sansui 9090 receiver. Turntable Technics SL-M2. Phono preamp is an iFi Zen. Reel-to-reel machine is a Tascam 34B 4-track. CD player is a Pioneer Elite DV47A. Cassette deck Pioneer CT S8000. There's two speakers there, but they're both large Advents. The one on top is the bullnose, and the bottom one is Advent Utility. Finishing up, we got a Marantz 2325, 2285B, a 2270, and a 2230, plus also Marantz 5020 cassette deck. Then there's a Technics SL110 with an SME 3000 tone arm. Cartridge is Shure V15, or there's a second cartridge, a Project Mono. And speakers, those are Pioneer CS99As. Jim, what a collection. Thank you. Hey, we are back. My name is Steve Guttenberg. I am the Audiophiliac. Thank you so much for watching this far into the video. I truly appreciate it. You guys know, or some of you guys know, that I have a Patreon, and for the last year or so, I have been making videos, exclusive content, that are not shown here on the YouTube channel. So there's so much more to see, but you got to join my Patreon to see it. Anyway, if that piques your interest, that's great. Or just continue here on YouTube. That's cool too. Anyway, thank you again for watching, and I really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.